Hi everyone and welcome to our webinar. Today we are going to be discussing the topic of building a team habit of using Wrike. Our session is going to take about 40 minutes of your time and we will finish with a Q&A session. Feel free to add your questions to the question box of the webinar interface. We would like to start with introducing ourselves. My name is Artem and I'm a Customer Success Manager here at Wrike. With me here is Irina and she is also a Customer Success Manager. The main goal of our roles is to help you use Wrike in the most efficient way. Our webinar is going to be divided into two blocks. During the first one, we are going to discuss the habits your team needs to build for Wrike to start bringing value to your organization. And in the second block, we will share tips and tricks on how you can assist your team members in building these habits. Feel free to download the handout to this webinar from the handout section of the webinar interface. Also, today, during this webinar, we will not be showing you a lot of Wrike workspace. Actually, this is going to be a webinar where we will focus on the best practices of change management. But to make the session more fun, we have included a lot of different photos of Irina's very nice dog, so the slides would be more fun for you.
All right, so let's begin. There is an obvious but very important fact that we need to highlight at the very beginning. Wrike is a platform for team collaboration, and in order to start bringing value to your organization, all users need to input information into the system. When all the details on the projects your team is working on are in Wrike, you're able to both see the big picture and dive into details. And this is usually the point where flows in processes become easily noticeable and room for improvement can be found. A lot of managers find themselves in a situation when a significant number of team members are not inputting data in Wrike. To address this problem, we recommend taking an WIIFM approach, which stands for What is it for me? Try to think not only from your standpoint, but also from the perspective of each of your team members. How could each and every one of them benefit from using Wrike? Here are some ideas for your inspiration. If I input all information into Wrike, I will have fewer meetings to attend and more time to focus on doing the things I love. With Wrike helping to automate several steps in our workflow, I will be able to finish work on time and stop sitting in the office at night. It takes so much time every week to search for all the versions of creative assets we are working on in the mailbox. It would be nice if we could have them all in one place and many more. So, before you start helping your team members to build these habits, give them a reason to do that. Observe for some time what they're doing, how they're doing it, and what are the common roadblocks. And then brainstorm for these roadblocks and the ways they could be avoided, or at least partly avoided, with the help of Wrike.
Now let's start discussing the list of habits your team members need to build. I would like to highlight the fact again that all these habits are listed in the handout section of the webinar interface. So feel free to download the handout from the handout section so you will be able to review these habits later. The first one actually resonates with what we have just been talking about. It is creating and updating items in Wrike. We have a good saying that we often recommend our customers to implement. If it is not in Wrike, it doesn't exist. Sometimes making an update is as simple as changing the status of a task. In other cases, it may require adding a few paragraphs into the description. In any case, you need to highlight the fact that any type of update will only require a couple of minutes and is definitely not a time-consuming activity.
Moving to the habit number 2, which is keeping everything assigned. Whenever any actionable step is added to one of the projects your team is working on, it needs to be assigned. When the work is properly distributed among the team members, everyone is clear about who is responsible for what. And one of the factors that could potentially lead to stress and confusion in this case could just be avoided.
Habit 3 is keeping all the work scheduled. It is simple. If all the projects and tasks are properly scheduled, it becomes easy for your team members to prioritize the work on a daily basis. Also, when the work is scheduled, it becomes easy and convenient to monitor it using the various tools Wrike has to offer, like dashboards or reports.
Habit number 4 is substituting internal emails with comments and at mentions in Wrike. We're stressing out here that we're only talking about internal emails. Of course, in an ideal world, all communications with external stakeholders should also happen in Wrike. But we will need to face the truth here. Not every customer you're working with would want to register in Wrike, right? So at least have your team members move all internal communications into Wrike. It will help you to eliminate the time wasted on searching for the necessary information in endless chains of emails.
Habit 5 is actually connected tightly with the fourth one. It is very important that whenever any of your team members requires assistance from a colleague, he or she would mention that colleague in Wrike. When all internal communication, including requests for help, are stored in Wrike, it becomes easy to check what was happening on any point during the project. Users on business subscriptions also have the opportunity to mark certain days as non-working days on a personal schedule. It helps to understand who is available to assist and who is not, because the sign appears to the right of the person's name in the at mentioning menu.
Another thing Write can help your team with is serving as a single source of truth for all the documents and all the creative assets. To achieve this, the team would need to implement the sixth habit, which is attaching all the files that are related to work, to Write tasks or projects. In your, I don't know, if your team is using one of the popular repositories such as Google Drive or Dropbox, they would not need to change the place where these assets are stored. They could simply link the items residing there to the relevant tasks and projects in Wrike.
Habit number 7 is conducting meetings in Wrike. Choose one or several volunteers from the team to add meeting notes after each regular meeting you conduct into the task. Then these team members would need to add mention the whole team so everyone would have access to the notes. Also, it is considered a good practice that each meeting should result in a number of actionable steps, which of course should be the tasks created in Wrike.
Moving to the habit number 8, which is keeping Wrike's inbox clean. No one likes a mailbox full of unread letters, right? And it is a common practice to start the working day going through these long lists and cleaning it up. You need to have your team members build the same habit in relation to Wrike's inbox. If a team member has 15 unread notifications, it means that something is seriously wrong. It could be his or her colleagues asking for help, or the previous task in the project has been completed and the team member can now start working on this task. The habit is actually connected with the fourth one that was about eliminating internal emails. If your colleagues would not send each other emails, they would at mention each other instead. So, in this context, keeping one's Wrike inbox clean means reacting on the colleagues' notes and requests on time.
Finally, the habit number 9 is archiving completed work. It can be very hard to navigate around a workspace where distinguishing active work from completed is a challenge. So whenever a team member or a group of team members finish working on a project, they should immediately do two things. First is marking this project as completed, and second is moving that project into the Z archive folder. Not only does it help to keep your workspace uncluttered, but also makes it super easy to report on completed work should a need arise. Alright, now when we know the habits your team members need to build, we would like to share several tips and tricks that will help you with the process of building them. Just like habits, these tips and tricks are all listed in the handout to the webinar. So feel free to download the handout and you will be able to review these tips and tricks later. Our first advice here is to make Wrike a comfortable place to live in. What does it mean? Well, obviously, an important thing here is that your team members know how to use the tool and how to perform the actions that are required for them in particular. These actions depend on the house rules you decide to implement. Some managers prefer to keep the responsibility of creating projects and tasks for themselves, so the users would only need to update those items when necessary. Others make a decision to give more freedom to the users, so they would create all the items themselves. Whatever approach you decide to stick with, building a clear folder structure and explaining to the team what needs to be residing where is definitely something that needs to be done. After you have organized your workspace, have your team members attend an onboarding webinar for the new users that we conduct every second week. Your team members will get familiar with the basics and learn how to update their work and monitor it.
The next thing that you need to keep in mind is that building a habit is a process. You can expect uh, or you cannot expect your team members to start actively using every feature Wrike has to offer from day one, right? So we recommend to start small. Set aside 15 minutes every day for your team members to update their items in Wrike. Make sure that there are no distractions and encourage everyone to ask questions in case they emerge. Once the habit of updating information in Wrike is successfully built, users can choose the time that is convenient for them to make these updates. Some prefer to do that at the beginning and at the end of each working day. Others choose to do that directly after the work has been completed. Another thing that we would like to recommend is to lead by example. A good starting point would be to build all the habits yourself. When your team sees you updating Wrike items every day, it will motivate them to at least give it a try.
There is a concept that we have already mentioned, and that is also mentioned in a lot of books on change management and building the habits. What's in it for me approach. When the decision was made to implement Wrike into your business to achieve certain goals, those goals were obviously set up from the business perspective. Sometimes business goals do intersect with personal goals of employees, but that is not always the case. So, what you need to do is to brainstorm on how every team member using Wrike could personally benefit from it. Here are some examples for your inspiration. All your team members could skip regular status update meetings if they responsively input information into Wrike. Increased process efficiency could dramatically decrease the time spent on administrative work, so the team members would have more time to perform the work they love. Again, as a consequence of increased efficiency of processes, those team members who stay at work late would be able to finish on time. And finally, another recommendation: visibility achieved with Wrike usually contributes to the decrease of the level of stress. There will be no misunderstandings on who is responsible for what and what were the original project requirements, because all the information will be stored in Wrike. You don't need to brainstorm on these ideas on how Wrike could benefit each of your team members yourself. You can just approach your team and ask, which factors prevent you from working more efficiently? And what in your opinion could be done to avoid them? Once you get the responses of your team members, think how you can use Wrike to address these pain points, to overcome these roadblocks. As a result, the team will be motivated to use Wrike, and the business Wrike related goals would be achieved much faster. All right, that were the ideas, the habits, and the tips and tricks that we were planning to share with you today. As we said in the beginning, we will not get the full hour of your time, but right now we are starting to answer your questions. So the first question that we have is from Jose, and the question is, where is the slide download link? So it's not the slides, it's the handout to the webinar that contains all the bullet points that we have been covering during this session. And you can find it in the handout section of the webinar interface. If you do not see the handout, and yes, we know that something it happens, just don't worry, we will just leave a comment in the question box and we will send you the handout after the webinar. And also we have a similar question from Brianna about the handout, but we understand that Brianna has already found the handout. While you are preparing your questions, we would like to share some additional resources that are available. The first resource here is our community, which can be accessed through the Help Center. So you go to help.wrike.com and you can find our community here. Our community is the place where our customers share use cases, where we share the best practices of utilizing Wrike, and where you can find answers to complicated questions from the Wrike gurus. We would also recommend registering for our other webinars and Ask the Expert sessions located at wrike.com/webinar. We're sure that you will be able to find some other sessions that might be of interest to you. And we have additional questions. We have a question from Tatiana. Will there be a place in Wrike where people can chat in a chat room, so teammates can chat online within Wrike? Well, this is a great question, Tatiana, and what we would like to say here is that we consider Wrike as a place where all the comments need to be left and stored. So usually modern teams tend to use different messengers for communication. Some prefer business solutions like Skype for business or Slack. Some prefer some other solutions like WhatsApp and Telegram. So basically, we think of Wrike as the place where information is stored. And instant messages, well, sometimes you need to ping your colleague, and well, we consider instant messengers like Slack more suitable tools for that. So answering your questions, you can either use @mentions, or you can just use some other messenger. So there are no plans to do that. Also, a follow-up question from Tatiana about the integrations with WhatsApp. So we do have a native integration with Slack. So if you are interested, you can just go, you can open your workspace. Just give me a second. And you can find that integration under the apps and integrations section. Just give me a second. And yes, so Wrike app for Slack. So you can just install it from here. So if you are using Slack, and of course you're more than welcome to review any other native integrations that we have. All right. What is the next question that we have? Does Wrike integrate with Outlook calendars and tasks lists? Well, quick answer, no. Megan, Wrike does not integrate with Outlook calendar. We have another question from Bianca. Is there a way to track reporting analytics effectively in Wrike? This is a great question. Bianca, if you don't mind, I would kindly ask you to elaborate a bit. By the way, if you have a microphone, you can actually raise a hand, so we will be able to discuss this issue directly, and you will be able to ask some follow-up questions. So if that's convenient for you, please raise a hand. If not, please elaborate on what exactly would you like to report on and write in the question box, and I'll happily discuss this topic with you. Also, there is a question from Jim. Can you enter a link to files in OneNote in a project folder? I assume you mean in a project or a folder. So, well, if you just get a link to any item in OneNote, you are able to paste it into the description. So if you are asking about is one able to attach items directly on the folder level to Wrike from OneNote, the answer is no. So you are able to only attach files from the cloud storage solutions that are listed here. So Google Drive, Dropbox, Box, OneDrive, and also YouTube and Media Valley if you are using Wrike Publish add-on. But you're more than welcome to just add the link to the attachment into the description, and it will be stored here. Also, due to the fact that not everyone is familiar with this concept, we have the bookmark section available in each space. So what you can do, you can actually attach the link to any of the files as a bookmark link, give it a good title, maybe description, so every single one of your team members will understand where that particular link leads. Oh, so we have another question from Alex. Does Wrike have two-factor authentication and how it can be enabled? Great question, Alex. And Wrike only has two-factor authentication on enterprise subscription. So if you are using an enterprise subscription, then you have this option available, and you can access it in the security tab. So you just click on your name. If you need to be an admin, of course, for that. Go to account management, and here you will be able to see the security tab where you will be able to see two-step verification. So yeah, you will be able to do that here. So Bianca is elaborating on her question. So traffic to web page, engagement on a social post, and how many open clicks an email had. Well, from the high level, I can give you like two answers. Answer number one would be if you just track all that information in Wrike. For example, you create a task and you track information there using simply tasks, subtasks using custom fields, then you will definitely be able to build a report that will show all that information. For example, you create a task for a social post, then you add a custom field in the table view called number of clicks, for example, right? And once you get the value, you enter value into the custom field. So afterwards, when you have several tasks representing several social posts, you will be able to build a report that will show all that information, including, of course, the number of clicks, but you will need to manually input that information. Another approach, of course, would be utilizing our paid add-on called Wrike Integrate. So using Wrike Integrate, you will be able to connect Wrike to some third-party solutions, and you would be able to transfer data between these solutions and Wrike. The approach would be pretty similar from the logical perspective, because it will still require certain tasks created and certain custom fields added. But what will change from the first approach that I've named, Bianca, would be that the fields could be automatically filled in using Wrike Integrate. So you can set up integration in a way so the data from one solution uh, could be transferred into Wrike and backwards. So on the high level, this is what I can answer you. I hope this helps. And another question from Bianca is about the integration with Salesforce. Yes, we do have an integration with Salesforce, and again, I'm going to give you two answers. So we have a native integration with Salesforce. So again, you can install it directly from the apps and integrations page. So here you can find it, Wrike for Salesforce. You just install it, and basically what it allows you to do, it allows to set up like connection between Wrike and Salesforce in the way so when a certain object in Salesforce is created, for example, a new opportunity or a new account is added, so you can set up the triggers in a certain way. It triggers the creation of either a task in Wrike or a project from template in Wrike. So this is what native integration does. It's one-way integration. I would like to repeat that is triggered by creation of a certain item in Salesforce, and it triggers the creation of a task or project from template and Wrike. And also, Salesforce integration can be established via Wrike Integrate add-on, and there you can build pretty much whatever you need. So firstly, a major difference here would be that integration could be two-sided. So it could either send data from Wrike to Salesforce, and of course from Salesforce to Wrike. So you will be able to transfer data backwards and forth. So yeah. And we have another question from Kristen about integration with Outlook. So did you say previously that Wrike did not integrate with Outlook, but here on this page you do see that integration? Well, yeah, this is correct, but the question was, I would say, more specific, the question from Megan. So it was about Outlook calendars and task lists. And no, sadly, Wrike cannot do that. But our Outlook integration, what it allows you to do, it allows you to create tasks from Outlook. But these tasks cannot be aligned with Outlook tasks. So that's what I want to highlight here. But thanks for clarification here, and thanks for being so attentive, Kristen. Yeah, great. All right. So we still have some time for your questions. We have reserved plenty of time. So if you have any additional questions, we will be happy to answer them. If not, we can be wrapping up right now. We'll just wait for a couple of minutes, and afterwards maybe we will start wrapping up. By the way, while we are waiting for some additional questions, I would like to point out a couple of sessions that I would say are heavily connected to the topics that we have discussed today. And what I would like to strongly recommend here is the session called Change Management Unpacked. So we have the second session and the first session. You can also find it in the on the webinar page, wrike.com/webinar, but I have just sent the link to specifically the second part into the chat. So there we discuss how to overcome the team's resistance to use Wrike, and I would say that some advice that we gave there could be easily combined with the information and tips and tricks that we have shared during this particular session. All right. I see there are no more questions. I hope that's because you understood everything that we were talking about. We hope you enjoyed this webinar. And there is also a question from Peter. Will the recording of this webinar be available? Yes, we will upload the recording tomorrow, so you will be able to find it on the webinar page, and it will also contain the link to the handout. So if for any reason you were not able to get it, don't worry, you will be able to get it starting tomorrow. So thanks again. Some additional thanks to guys who have asked the questions. We value your feedback, and we are very eager that you want to have these conversations during the webinars. So thanks again, and we wish you the most productive rest of your week.
Thank you so much for being with us today, and hope to see you on our future sessions. You're more than welcome to join them. Thank you. Goodbye.